everybody. It's Pat. So glad to be back kind of to our regular format after the last few weeks. We've kind of had a little bit of a different look, but we're back to our norm again this week. And so glad to have you friends out there. You don't know how much we appreciate you. And without you, this would just be, we wouldn't be having this chat tonight. So we're just glad you're out there and appreciate your time. So we're very excited to have a very special guest again this evening. You have heard from her before, but before we bring Julie on, I want to give you just a little refresher course on Uncruise Adventures. Hang on a second here while we play this quick intro.
Each of the islands has their own energy and kind of gravitation. A lot of the trips that we do, we step out of the way and let the land speak for itself. But on this trip specifically, we step out of the way and then let the local people speak for themselves about the land. Love the views, love the marine mammals. I love spending almost every day in the water snorkeling and adding kayaking and skiff tours on top of that. And so some of our best experiences are our least planned. That if we're staying flexible and doing whatever the weather and the islands give us, a lot of times we get the best results that way. And it's the plan from which to deviate. Treating the whole thing as one big story and focusing on a different aspect each day.
And with that, folks, you might have a clue that we're welcoming back Julie Query, one of our strategic partners with Uncruise Adventures. And here she is. Welcome, Julie. We're so glad to have you back.
Thank you, Pat. It is truly always an honor to be on your show. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, well, it is a privilege, and Uncruise Adventures is just one of our more reliable and relied upon partners when it comes to people who are looking for an adventurous sort of a vacation on a small ship. Nobody does it better than Uncruise Adventures. So could we just start off? And I know people got acquainted with you a little bit when we did Alaska a few weeks back, but could you just share a little bit about your background in travel and how you made your way to Uncruise Adventures? And tell us also if you ever get out of the office and are able to actually get on one of your vessels and check it out.
Absolutely. Well, we've all been kind of cooped up for the past 15 or 19 months here. So I am thrilled to announce that next week I will be jumping on one of our Alaska voyages, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am. But I have been in travel my entire adult life. It is what I started working on, small boat vessels. I'm maybe slightly ashamed to say, over 35 years ago. And stayed in the small boat world. It's just a part of my passion and blood, and have been working with Uncruise Adventures for the past 7 of those years. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of this family and share what they do with the world.
Well, that is so cool. And I'm just so envious of people who got into travel at a young age, because you guys have had, you really have opportunities, and I didn't even think about it until I was what's to say, most people were thinking about planning for retirement at that point, but I digress.
Yeah. Well, I think in my world, Pat, I couldn't afford to travel back then. And that was like, maybe I'll get into travel. And then, of course, turned into a lifetime profession. So just
a brilliant move.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Right.
Julie, I expect that most of our listeners perhaps have not yet experienced a small ship environment and know what to expect if they were to take a trip with Uncruise Adventures. How would, I think a lot of our listeners, on the other hand, have done the big ship. How would the Uncruise experience compare kind of apples and watermelons? I know, but do your best.
Well, certainly there's some similarities, right? They're both on vessels, but we really are more like a floating lodge. where we can get into small areas. We can take all of our activities with us. We really appeal to the non-cruisers, Pat. People would love to go to. I know tonight's theme is Hawaii. And the thought of actually visiting 4 islands in 7 days, but really living under the water, above the water, seeing it really behind the scenes is our silver bullet as a company, just doing it so different. And that's thus the name Uncruise. We do so much that's polar opposite of a big ship, but certainly we have that beautiful Safari Explorer that you're looking at, 36 passengers, all outside cabins, that takes us into these beautiful remote areas in and around Hawaii.
So when you're thinking about small cruise, I mean, you're talking about people that would just be, you would have fewer people actually than what would be in one section of the hallway when when you're looking for your cabin on a one of the big ships. You would, I mean, fewer passengers than just there in your little section of the hallway. So
Yeah, that is true. This little vessel has proven to be such a perfect vessel for visiting the Hawaiian Islands. It's only 18 cabins, so 36 guests, as I mentioned, on board. But man, what an intimate way to visit these islands, and not the popular islands, but the really remote cultural islands, is which we try to do on all the destinations that we
So
go to.
it's an immersive type of experience, authentic, all of those words that people, experiential, all of those kind of buzzwords that people are into for their bucket list trips. These
You got it.
Uncruise Adventures. Before we get totally off on our track for Hawaii, which is where we're headed, but I'd love for you to just give you a chance for you to tell our listeners some of the other destinations that they could look forward to sailing with Uncruise.
Oh, I would, of course, would love to share that. And I mentioned one of them right at the beginning of the presentation, which is Alaska. We have 6 vessels sailing in Alaska right now through September. And our phones have been ringing off the hook. People want to get up to Alaska and see the Inside Passage. We also have the Pacific Northwest out of Seattle, Washington. Columbia and Snake River, a beautiful 7-night cruise out of Portland, Oregon. And we are starting our international in 2022, which would include Mexico Sea of Cortez, all of Latin America. And I should mention, I forget this little nugget, on April 30th of this year, we started our Galapagos trips back up on our on the La Pinta. Yeah, so we're on the 3rd voyage there. So
that's such an amazing destination. And I know it's on many, many travelers' bucket list to do the Galapagos. And folks, saying it again, you cannot do it better than if you do it with Uncruise. So just something to keep in mind if that's destinations also on your bucket list. So all that said, let's switch over now and try to get focused on our destination we're featuring, which is, of course, is Hawaii. This has been our whole month focus, and so that we're winding up with our last week. What islands with your adventure would you normally expect to visit? I think I've got a map here we can pull up while you're talking about that one.
You betcha. I love it. It's a beautiful map indeed. So we will either start in Kona or start in the beautiful cultural island of Molokai. And we'll also visit Lanai and Maui. And by design, those Maui County islands, which consists of Molokai, Maui, and Lanai, we chose that area because of the shallow water, the migration of the beautiful whales that mate and give birth there every year. And then, of course, again, I can't say it enough, the cultural gem of Molokai. They were very adamant on no big cruise ships to visit that island. And our owner had courted that island for about 3 years and really taught them and introduced the type of client that loves to sail with Uncruise Adventures is the type of client that would really appreciate the cultural aspect of that island. So that was really important to have, for us to have that in our mix.
And that's just not a destination that you will ever see if you go
Right.
on a large cruise ship, or probably not even if you do a land tour. It's very seldom that, when people are doing 3 islands, which is very typical for when they're doing land, Molokai just doesn't get on that list. Very
Right. Right.
exceedingly rare. So off the beaten path for sure. And what about your dress code and so forth on there?
Well, on all of our vessels, including Alaska, or excuse me, Hawaii, it's all casual. What you wear for breakfast, you wear to dinner. In fact, a cute story, Pat. My husband, it was our first cruise when I first joined Uncruise, and my husband was like, "Do I have to wear long pants?" I said, "No, you can wear shorts." "Do I have to wear collared shirts?" "Nope, you can wear t-shirts." So that was a really big appeal to have that casual dress throughout the voyage. What again, just being comfortable throughout the entire voyage.
That is so neat. Uh, I mean, it's not that I'm adverse to getting dressed up, but sometimes when you go on the big ships, you've got to pack your daytime informal wear, and then you've got to have regular dinners, and you have formal. And sometimes I feel like I could move my whole household easier than I
Yes.
could just pack for that cruise. We honestly, we look like refugees dragging all of this stuff around sometimes. So don't have to do that with Uncruise, guys.
No.
One suitcase per person is quite adequate. What else is on that itinerary, Julie?
Well, it starts off, if you start off in the island of Kona, what a diverse island that is. I mean, I think out of all the islands, the big island that we leave out of Kona, but that the big island is so diverse, and it's black sand, and it's volcano national parks, and it's just all the things from sea to mountain on that island is just terrific. And then going into places like Lanai, it's a private island. It's got the beautiful colors of the land formations that butt right up against the gorgeous blue turquoise ocean. Again, we've chatted about Molokai, but that is really one of the oldest settlements of Hawaii, dating back to 650 AD. So having that island is truly a gem in the mix. And then having Maui mixed in there as well is really a great way to get off and stretch your legs and kind of get out and see the locals and some of the great cultural aspects that people typically miss in Maui because they tend to do the tourist spots. But all in all, the wildlife, of course, dictates our schedule. It is, getting there during the winter time when the whales have migrated down to mate and give birth. Pat, these whales don't typically eat when they're in those warm waters. They're mating, they're giving birth. So
Wow.
it is really a wonderful activity to watch both on the islands as well as underneath the waterline, both above and below. Is just equally time is given for both of those to just really experience.
And I think is it December through the end of April that's kind of whale season to catch
It
that?
it really is, yes. And then, of course, when they migrate back to that cold water, we're up there to check them out, doing all those great activities in Alaska. So it's really
Right.
fun to follow the whales.
Right. If they miss whale season when they book Hawaii, they can catch up with them later then up
Yeah.
in Glacier Bay, right?
Yes, you're exactly right.
Right. No reason you can't do 2 cruises in a year, folks. There's no rules against that.
That's right.
We're
Fire
happy
and
to
ice.
help.
Yeah.
We can happy to help make that happen for everybody. Tell us a bit uh, about the inclusiveness.
Mhm.
What all is included when people sail with Uncruise Adventures? It's going to surprise some people, I think.
I think it is as well. But we found throughout the years that, especially the demographics that love to sail with Uncruise Adventures, they don't want to be nickel and dimed. They want to get on, they want to have an inclusive experience, which would include, of course, all the meals, all the beverages, all the activities. They could do as much or as little as they would like on board. In fact, what's not included is a far shorter list, and it might be helpful to mention that airfare to and from, because we do leave out directly out of Hawaii. We're U.S. flag, so we don't have to leave out of an international port. We leave right out of the beautiful islands. Any gratuity that your clients would like to extend to our vessel crew, and port taxes are not included, but everything else is included on board. And it might be really helpful to, when we look at these photos of kayaking, maybe some of your audience is like, well, I don't know if I want a kayak. I've never done that before. And that's the great part about Uncruise, is that we appeal to the novice all the way up to the really experiential enthusiast, outdoors active. Just trying to teach our guests, if they're not comfortable being in a kayak, or if they've always wanted to snorkel but maybe haven't snorkeled in a while, we literally handhold them with our expedition team on board. So it's such a beautiful place to learn or to reintroduce yourself to some of these activities maybe you haven't done in a while.
I just love it. And I know that the active adventurer is really at home on your cruises, but there's I take it plenty of room for people more like me that
Yes.
now I do. I love to snorkel. When I mean, I could really get in trouble snorkeling because I could burn myself. I could just hang there and looking down, and I could get one heck of a sunburn if I didn't watch myself because
Right.
it's easy to do. But so people who are adventurous and maybe not totally fit, they're going to find a place to fit in.
They sure will. And that's really our joy, to watch those novice come on board and discover how much that, I'll call it color therapy. It's color therapy when you get your face under that water, Pat, as you were describing, and you could get mesmerized with all the beautiful activity that happens there. So we just get such a thrill out of that.
And you just don't realize this is another thing, Julie, I didn't get into until, I was in my 50s the first time I snorkeled. So you don't have to grow up doing this, folks. You can, you can learn. It's not that hard, and you can paddle in a kayak. You can snorkel. Even if you have never done it before, you just got to have a little bit of adventure and be willing to try something new. Help is available right there, and just a little bit of encouragement, and you're going to be finding yourself right at home with snorkel gear.
Yeah, you bet. In fact, we issue the snorkel gear right at the beginning of the cruise. We make sure everybody's face mask is fit just perfectly. They have the right comfortable fins on, beautiful snorkel, and then they get to keep it throughout the voyage. We have some lockers on the aft of the vessel. So it's just kind of nice. They don't have to reintroduce or refit throughout. They get to use the gear throughout the vessel.
Use the same gear, and we're all a little bit concerned with the health and sanitation things. So you're using the same gear your entire cruise, and I love that. Now, Julie, you guys are in like Alaska when we talked about it, very seasonal. Late April to early May and into September, and then it's over. Hawaii year round, right?
Well, I can see why you're asking that. We are now just back to the winter. We were winter, then we went year round because it was so popular. And of course, the COVID has changed so much on deployment with all of us, and we've gone back to just the winter. So we're going November all the way through early spring with the Safari Explorer, and then the Explorer will make her way back to Alaska, deadhead just with the crew, and then we'll start up the Alaska season with her during that April through September
so
season.
People could conceivably sail on her, do Hawaii in the wintertime. It's not too, you can book your January, a Hawaii trip now, and then be on the same vessel in July or August up in Alaska, you would feel right at home.
You sure would. And people have done that. It's been amazing that people love to follow the same vessel. It does feel like home and they're used to it and they're comfortable with it. They love the crew. So
Yeah.
oftentimes we get people asking for the same vessel.
And you do, I mean, folks, this is one thing when you're on these small vessels, you get acquainted with the crew. You make friends with them and develop relationships. And so when you get back on the same vessel that you've been on before, you're greeting old friends and they
Yes.
remember you and they're glad to see you. You're glad to see them. So, that can be part of the experience as well. Julie, tell us a little bit, just clarify your target demographic is the perfect cruiser for Uncruise Adventures. We've touched on it a little bit, but could you just zone in on that?
I sure will. In fact, I think people are surprised when they hear our really core prime demographics are 55 to 80. That we fit right beautifully into that bucket. But very close to that. We get families and solos on board or singles on board. We do have single cabins on all of our vessels. So it makes it really nice. I think for solo travelers that might be listening to the show would really love the idea of the feeling safety and in traveling with a group, instant camaraderie right on board the vessel, but they also get their time, their solo time. So it really is for all, again, families, singles, and for couples on board. But that 55 to 80 is really a sweet spot. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I think it's worth mentioning again that non-cruisers are a big demographic for us. We really operate more like a tour operator or a B&B than a cruise line.
That's very cool. I love that, and I think so, folks. If you think you're not a cruiser, just rethink that with Uncruise Adventures, because it really is more like your floating hotel, your resort that takes you right. Um, what other activities are included with Hawaii? Just curious. I know we've mentioned some of the water, the kayaking, and so forth, but what else?
So every day, our expedition leaders will talk about the following day and what we're going to do, where we're going to be. Mother Nature plays a big part because we do get so close. And you saw at the opening video there that we really love a plan in which to deviate from, and Mother Nature has a big a part in playing in that. But we always have nature walks, and we do them different levels. So we understand that not everybody's activity level is exactly the same. So we really work with our guests on board. They don't need to know until they get on board what the activity level or what they would like to do. And that's the fun part about it. They can customize their day on however it is they would like to. So from nature walks, we talked about kayaking, getting out in our zodiacs, snorkeling, getting out and tasting some of the local, especially in Molokai, that local traditional Hawaiian flair is really important for us, not only to see the destination, but to taste our way through it, use all of our senses to experience this gorgeous destination. And then some time on their own too, which is really important when you're on holiday, to make sure that you have time just to relax and view and watch the world just right on board the vessel.
Catch an afternoon nap, perhaps.
Right.
But I love that you have opportunities built in to actually connect with the local people and plug in a bit to that authentic Hawaiian culture. And you're with these islands like Lanai and Molokai, you really are. It doesn't get any more authentic than that.
Right, right. And another, just to tag on to that, another really key element that most people don't even know when they get on our vessel, but all of our seafood and all of our produce is locally sourced. So not only are they getting the freshest of freshest seafood, but really supporting the communities in which we sail is so big for what we like to do. Really trying different tastes and that freshness and is really important to Uncruise Adventures. So uh, it's something that we talk about, but we probably don't talk enough about how amazing the food on board. It's that farm to table flair that we love to extend.
I love that, and that is again such an important thing to so many people is that farm to table, the freshness, the healthy flair that it has, and supporting the local people who are right there on site raising uh, that the so your cuisine will vary according to where you're sailing.
Yes, it will, and seasonality. If the beautiful sweet potatoes of Molokai are just being unearthed, and our chef goes in and creates something magical with that, or whatever fish is in season. So it's a great way to taste our way through the destination as well.
I love that. What about people with special interests? We get a lot of inquiries from people, photographers, bird watchers, people who are into the wildlife viewing. Are there options for customization for those special interest people?
Well, you hit on really some core activities. Everybody, whether it's their phone or whether it's a fancy DSLR camera, comes on board, not only in Hawaii, but in all of our destinations, because we get so close. We're one deck from the waterline. In fact, our vessels are designed to have a wraparound deck so people have access to the great wildlife. But you're absolutely, marine biologists love that. This vessel in particular, the 18 cabins, is a great charter vessels for families or for interest groups that really want to travel and explore together. And absolutely, customization is very easy when it's a charter. But it is a common thread once you start meeting people on board, the common interests that they have. And again, all the things that you had mentioned that are really key to the type of clientele that love to travel with us.
That is so interesting and such a good. And I want to salute you. You said something a while ago, and I just want to backtrack a minute about having space for the solo travelers. And I didn't, but I think you were among the first to really recognize that not everybody travels as pairs.
No.
And,
I think sometimes it's by, well, most of the time we find it's by design. I mean, whether they're with someone or not, a lot of people love to travel and really explore a much needed alone time. So we
Yeah.
find a lot of those on board.
Yeah, I did my first solo trip in 2019 and did a river cruise. And I was a little bit, because I always travel with my husband, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to be. I don't, but it was wonderful to have that experience. And I now, I have a greater understanding, and I can really steer my solo clients to those providers who are welcoming to their needs, and provide and have provisions on their vessels and tours and things for them. And it's a growing segment of the population. And I salute Uncruise Adventures for having that open door and having it early on, when others possibly weren't even acknowledging
Right.
those clients even had that there was a need. So
Yeah.
love that.
Thank you.
And now the pandemic, we have to touch on this. I know it's just, we've suffered through all these months, and finally the doors are opening.
Right.
And Hawaii, I know, is currently moving toward relaxing their restrictions. Seems like every week there's the door cracks open a little farther. I think there's no longer requiring additional testing going island to island. That was an issue for a while, so that door has opened. How is the pandemic and the requirements. How's that working out with Uncruise Adventures?
Well, Dan, our owner, decided early on to, if we were going to be safe, if we were going to keep our crew safe and our guests, are really our prized guests who have hung with us through all of this safe, that we were going to go 100% vaccinated. And there's those folks that may not be able to be vaccinated or may not want to be vaccinated. And so as we move through 22 and 23, certainly those requirements will likely be relaxed. But for 21, including Hawaii, all of our crew and guests will need to be vaccinated. And then certainly hold whatever requirements are at the time arriving into Molokai or into the Big Island on Tacona will certainly adhere to any of those requirements as well.
Yeah. Last I know, the most recent information I have is they're still requiring that PCR test 72 hours prior to your flight departure for Hawaii. I do hear that possibly that might loosen up for vaccinated. Again, that will be for vaccinated individuals. But so far as we know right now, still that PCR test is required. You guys, is it November is your first sailing? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. By then, don't hang your hat on any of this, folks, because
right.
Lord only knows it is evolving. Sometimes not just day to day, but 1 hour to the next. I'll read one thing in the morning, and by late that afternoon, there's another message out there. So things are very fluid. So just book and know that we'll keep you updated on whatever the requirements are at the time of your sailing. Julie, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad whenever you can be our guest, and I'm sure you've given the audience a lot to think about. I've got one more video here. I think we've just got time to plug that in, folks.
Oh,
I really want you to see this. We're going to run maybe a minute over, but stay tuned for this. You're going to love this video. Wow, I love that video. That is so amazing. Folks, could you just see yourself right there experiencing all of that? That's really just a like 2 minutes of what you could do over the course of a week at Uncruise Adventures. Julie, thank you again. We're so
Thank you,
glad.
Pat.
We're so glad here. And folks, if you're ready to book, it couldn't be easier. Just reach out to me here at Dancing Moon Travel, and we'll have a quote in your hands in definitely less than 24 hours. And thank you again, Julie. We will meet again soon in the near future. And folks, just for the day, the comment in the comment section, just put Uncruise, Uncruise, Uncruise in the comment section, and you'll be in our drawing for this week. So thanks again, Julie, and we'll see you very soon again.
Thank
Bye,
you,
folks.
everyone.
See you,
Have a great
friends.
evening. Bye-bye.